Hey! What's up, gang? This is my man, the myth, the legend.
Oh, God.
Claire.
Stop.
Right there.
Hey, but welcome to the first ever production mid-engine Corvette Stingray. Feel free to make loud, deafening fanfare, by the way, and shout out your approval. Oh, there we go. Beautiful. Also, this is Steve, our professional vehicle handler. Give it up for Steve. Steve's in charge of the car, driving all over the country. He's the only man allowed to drive this vehicle. Right in. So we are going to give you a quick presentation on the whys, not just what this car is, how much it costs, and what it does. We'll discuss that as well, but also some of the whys behind the architecture. Why did we build a mid-engine? Why now? And specifically how this engineering behooves the car. So first of all, let's take a trip back in time. This deals with a lot of history. Does anybody know the last time a front-engine sports car won the 24 Hours of Le Mans? Do you know the year? 1962. It was the very last time a front-engine sports car was competitive at that level of performance. From 1962 to now, it's been dominated by mid-engines. Roughly around that same year, Zora Arkus Duntov, the father of the Corvette, was building his first Serve 1 mid-engine prototype. So it's taken over 50 years to get a mid-engine to production in the Corvette. He knew all those years and saw the future. He knew that the future was with mid-engine. Here we are. For starters, this is a lot bigger than the C7. This is almost 6 inches longer, 2.2 inches wider. So it's a substantially bigger footprint than our C7, but it is also one of the leanest sports cars we've ever built. And by lean, I mean everything is fully functional and everything is pulled as taut as it can be to the underlying mechanical components. So for our walk-around presentation here, folks, we're going to start at the front and work our way back. If you can't see what we're talking about, we have an awesome film crew here. Check out the screen just behind us here, and hopefully you'll be able to see some of the elements a little more up close if you can't see it yourself. So we're starting with mid-engine. You have two schools of thought. You either build a tub chassis or a center tunnel chassis. The C8 is a center tunnel chassis, and there's two benefits to that. Our frame here is comprised of one large compressed dense aluminum backbone and 6 separate aluminum cross braces building the frame around that. The neat feature to that, even though it's not a tub chassis, we were able to increase structural rigidity in our frame by 10% compared to the C7, and it leaves us with a lot of available space all the way around the exterior of the car to run cooling and electronics. So we'll start at the front with our main heat dispersers. The biggest radiators on board the vehicle, you can check them out right up here on the nose. They are under the headlights. If you see the screen behind us over there, they're huge, huge heat dispersers. They actually extend further past this front fascia cross brace into the side. So the reason the car is quite wide was largely just to fit the heat dispersers in the vehicle. Front, mid, and rear of the car, we have heat dispersers all over the vehicle. We also have these center front cutaways in the carbon flash metallic front fascia. Those are your active front brake duct cooler. So everything in the front of the car is all to do with dispersing heat, whether it be motor heat or your brakes. This is the front trunk. We also have a hidden release for the front trunk. We fondly call it the frunk. The front release is just under the driver's side headlight here, midway back. Pop that hidden latch. In theory, if the car is unlocked, you want to hit the unlock button? Or not. Give us one sec. Give me one moment here, folks, and we will reset this. Every now and then, with everybody getting in and out of the car kind of freaks itself out and puts it on demo mode. Just give me one moment. Technical difficulty. Very good.
Hey, Richard.
Okay, there we go. Let us see.
Richard, you got it.
Oh, sweet. The frunk, it works. Step number one, it is a functional frunk. It is 2 feet deep. You can fit one overhead airline-sized rigid suitcase in there. Soft luggage is definitely your friend. You can get a couple of duffel bags down in the front trunk. You have 3 mechanical components riding with you in the nose of the vehicle now. You have your battery and all your electronics centered here. Just to the left, you see that fluid reservoir. That is your fluid reservoir for your brakes. This is a big story for us here at Corvette. It's the first time we've ever had brake-by-wire brakes on board. We're calling it e-boost brakes. Basically, it lets you digitally tune and adjust your brakes while you're on the go. Now, a lot of you guys in the Corvette Club I saw had C7s. In the C7, you can digitally adjust your exhaust note, your throttle response, and your suspension. You have magnetic ride control. You can still do all of that on the C8, but you can further fine-tune it to your daily driving settings by adjusting your brake feeling as well. So of course, you have your track, sport, touring, and weather modes. Track is going to be your most aggressive setting. Touring is going to be your most conservative, softest setting. You can go anywhere within that spectrum and fine-tune it now for your daily driving configurations. And you can go even further than that and adjust to a his and hers setting. So you have preset settings. Remember, by your different key fobs. So when you get in the car recognizes your key fob and digitally adjusts everything without you having to do anything at all. Pretty neat feature there. And your washer fluids up in the nose as well. So that's the mechanical layout of the front of the car. Again, just to recap, engine radiators, brake duct coolant, battery and electronics, drive-by-wire brakes, and your washer fluid. To turbocharge the car? Yes, excellent, you're already going. You learned the presentation in a couple minutes. This goes straight in the auxiliary port right here. Notice those large masculine fingers. Thank you very much. That's me. I do it every now and then. That goes straight in there. You don't even have to touch the battery at all. Now this is a functional dual mode latch on the front hood. So you pop it down once, pop it down halfway, leaving just enough space there for your turbocharger to get underneath for winter storage. You can press it down again, go all the way down. So that is functional and nicely designed. Now the weight distribution on board the car now is 60-40, 60 in the rear, 40 in the front. With the front being a little lighter, we had to engineer a way to give you a little more active downforce to keep the nose planted at speed. We've done that by wind tunnel testing and giving you a really aggressive angle on the front hood and the front windshield. Everything is pretty low sloped back, low slung back A-pillars. Because of that, driver visibility was a little bit impeded, so we compensated by having the passenger side mirror here. Do you mind extending the mirrors all the way up? But right here on the side, thank you. This actually sticks 2 inches further out on the passenger side than it does on the driver's side. Most people don't even notice until we point it out, but it is 2 inches wider over here, so when you're sitting in the driver position, you still get great visibility on both sides. Now looking down the silhouette of the car, we have huge air intakes on either side. On the passenger side right here, you'll see on the screen you have a giant heat diffuser back here. That's going to be your primary transmission radiator. On the driver's side, you guys can see down that scoop there, it is actually hollow. That duct is your primary engine breather. You have your air intake coming in that scoop there. It also diverts into a multi-valve system midway back that quarter panel. You have electric fans on board for active heat dispersion and also a Y duct for your rear brake cooling in the rear as well. So everything you see on this car is fully functional and actually works to benefit you. We'll go into the active heat dispersing really quickly before we hit the interior. One of the biggest questions we get, what is the engine noise like in the cabin and how hot does it get when you're driving? Anybody worried about that? Kind of have questions? Only one guy here, good, okay, we'll talk about it anyways. So basically, you have twin fans on either side, riding in the rear of the vehicle, pressing hot air out. So the engineering design language, the theory is, hot engine air is never allowed to accumulate in time to affect temperature in the cabin or in the rear trunk. It gets out one of 2 ways. We have these perforated vents back here on top of the engine bay and a cantilevered glass edge. You can see that the glass is not sealed over there. If you check that panel out, the natural laws of convection, heat rises, so heat can naturally make its way out, or the fans vacuum it out the rear of the car directly between the exhaust pipes. We have these perforated mesh grates back here. It's pretty neat. When we drive the C8, this guy here's a hand-built pre-production prototype that you're looking at today. When we drive our prototype on our enclosed trailer every day and head to the next shop, you can feel the air circulating around the trailer because the car is doing exactly what it was designed to do. The idea is if you had ice cream in the trunk of this car, it shouldn't melt any faster than it would in any normal trunk, because the hot air is not given a chance to sit in the engine bay. It's vacuumed out. So that's sort of how that works. We will get into the engine bay here. The big question that we get on tour here is, what about water? Can water get in these vents? The answer is yes. Water absolutely can, and that is totally fine. You have a drain system engineered into the engine bay. 2 drains right back here in the furthest rear ducts, and 2 circular drains up in the nose, as well as some down in the bottom. So if rain gets in the car, everything is angled so it immediately gets shifted to one of the drains and pushed immediately outside of the car. The only downside with a mid-engine, and this isn't just ours, this is most mid-engines on the marketplace, you can't bring it through a car wash. Now I know most Corvette guys would never dream of bringing their Corvettes through a car wash anyways. I see all these guys in the car club smiling, but especially for a mid-engine, because you have active heat dispersal, those new laser washes dump hundreds of gallons of water a minute, so there is a risk that it can fill up before it can drain, basically. So you want to wash it by hand. I've been told that the best way to do it on the C8, stand at the nose of the car, hose the whole thing down front to back, wash the whole thing by hand, stand at the front, and rinse it off the same way. That way water goes straight in those grates, straight down the side ducts, out. It doesn't even touch your engine bay. So that's the way to wash your car and do it properly. This is an all-new engine, all-new transmission, all-new magnetic ride control suspension setup. In fact, there is only one part on this entire car that was on the C7. One pre-existing part. Does anybody know what it is? Who hasn't heard my presentation before? Any idea? Well, I know you know it. I know you know it already. It is the interior door latch. That is it. That is the only pre-existing part on board the entire vehicle. We have a whole new engine block. It's titled the LT2. It is a 6.2 liter naturally aspirated V8. A lot of you guys in the car club have that same 6.2 liter size in your C7s, but it's a whole new block. We have active dry sump lubrication standard from the 1LT on up. We have 3 scavenging pumps on board, keeping it laterally equally lubricated for up to 1 G of cornering speeds in either side. The benefits of that are twofold. Number one, it makes our block a lot shallower, so we can mount it lower in the chassis, bettering your weight distribution and your handling. And number two, it is heat reduction because it's less friction on board, keeping it more lubricated as you go. So it's a twofold system with the LT2. That is paired to an all-new 8-speed dual-clutch transaxle transmission that is built in conjunction with GM and Tremec. The first 6 gears are pretty tightly spaced, keeping you in the center of the power bandwidth, and the last 2 are pretty spaced far apart for efficient highway driving. 0 to 60 is under 3 seconds with the Z51. Without Z51 package, it's just a hair over. So, but still, you're in that ballpark.
Does the glass get hot?
No, not really. Again, active heat dispersal. It's keeping it flowing right out of the car. That is also the thickest pane of glass ever made on a production car. So almost double the thickness of the standard windshield. And the benefit of that is twofold. It's keeping the heat away from you, but also acoustics. It's helping dampen the sound from behind your head too. That sits just over a dual pane firewall, which is also insulated right behind the seats. So you do get a lot of acoustic help as well, so it's not as loud as you might think. Storage space, you have 12.6 cubic feet, including the front and rear trunks. C7 did have 15, so we've lost a bit of storage space. Roof panel is 16 pounds, super easy and lightweight for one person to get in and out. If you go for the carbon fiber roof, that's going to be 14 pounds, that's even a little lighter. Here, while I have the roof out, folks, if you want to take a look in there and see how deep the rear trunk is, 2 full sets of golf clubs will fit. You also have cutaways down on the sides down there in the corner. So you can't fit extra stuff around the edges just because they're making use of the full architecture of the rear. All right, let a couple people check out. Does anybody have magnetic ride control on their current Corvette? A couple of you guys? MagRide? So this MagRide is the same technology that we had in the C7s, but it's gotten even faster. Basically, describing magnetic ride control, you have metal ion particles floating in the fluid stream of your shock absorbers. And that reacts to an electromagnetic charge to either loosen or tighten your dampers. So if you're in track mode, it's very firm, little body roll. If you're in touring mode, it's pretty soft and conservative. You're getting really nice dampening over bumps. Same technology on board here, but what we've done from an engineering standpoint, we've added an accelerometer, one accelerometer to each of the 4 shocks. So we now have the ability to send the electric signal from the shock to the computer's ECU at twice the speed. So the suspension is still reacting 1,000 times a second, but we're able to read that signal at twice the speed now. So it's the same tech that we had in the C7 with the MagRide, it's just even faster reacting times now. And that's not only beneficial for track day use, but also for daily driving as well. That reacts to traction. If a wheel goes into a pothole, the suspension can react fast up to sense, it's lowering, and loosen the damper in time to help cushion that blow. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff. Two more things we'll talk about, then we'll open up the floor to question and answer. We'll talk about Z51 pack. $5,000 for the Z51 performance package, and you get 6 things. Number 1 is the aero kit. This chin splitter on the front of the vehicle here, the rear deck spoiler you're looking at there. Those are exclusive to Z51 and only on the Z51 pack. You can't get those as standalone options as of right now. You get bigger brake rotors. The only badging on the car that says Z51 is going to be on your brake calipers. You also get an electronic limited slip differential, a lower axle ratio. The axle ratio is really crucial in how you're getting 0 to 60 under 3, and also your dual mode performance sport exhaust, which does add 5 horsepower, 5 pound-foot of torque. You also get an added intercooler rear mounted in the vehicle for added transmission cooling. That's what you're getting for Z51. In order to get magnetic ride control suspension, you have to have Z51. That's a new packaging thing. So it's almost $2,000. It's $1,895 for a MagRide, $5,000 for Z51. So total, you're looking roughly right around $7,000 in content. The last feature we'll talk about is the hydraulic front lift. Anybody excited about that? Oh, now everyone that has a Corvette is tired of scraping it on speed bumps and stuff. So hydraulic front lift on board, $1,500. That is an option not included on anything, only available on the 2LT, 3LT. Basically, here's how the system works. Say you're going to target, for example, and there's a speed bump. You approach the speed bump, you have to press the button, raises the car 2 inches in 2.8 seconds. You drive over the speed bump, you press it again, it lowers the car. The vehicle will then ask you on the in-dash infotainment system if you want it to remember that exact chain of commands. You have to then hit yes, it saves it, and it remembers 1,000 locations. For the rest of your life with your Corvette, it will raise and lower itself over those obstacles that you save into it.
That's just the front end.
Just the front end, yeah. Not the rear. The rear is stationary. It's a twin front spindle hydraulic lift on the nose. The only downside to that is if you're using it for track day racing, if you have hydraulic front lift, you lose your adjustability in the front shocks. So you can't lower the front of the car or raise the car if you have hydraulic front lift. That's the only really downside. That really only affects you if you're going to the track and you really want to ratchet it down. Suspension is going to be standard coilovers now, so gone are the days of the long-lived Corvette leaf springs in the rear. You have adjustable coilovers all 4 corners. So whether you have the FE3, FE4, or magnetic ride control suspension, you can take off your wheels and manually adjust it up or down, even on the base trim level. That basically takes us through the whole everything that's going on here with the C8, folks. Any questions?
Yes.
Specific questions?
When are they coming out with the manual?
There's no manual transmission.
No, that's not the question.
Was that a firm
I cannot
no or a
confirm
maybe
or
no?
deny. Do you want to know the reasons why we don't offer manual NIS?
Yeah, because the automatic's too popular and the manual.
The millennials.
Too expensive.
Sort of. So here's the. It does shift faster, but here's the actual reason why. So we have a center tunnel architecture here, not a tub chassis. So most of the structural integrity of our frame here is based off that compressed aluminum brace in the center. To get a manual transmission, then you would have to puncture the center beam to get the linkages down, and it would actually reduce our overall structural stability on board, structural rigidity. The other reason is, when you build a mid-engine, our cabin gears move 16.5 inches further forward in the vehicle. Your feet are right near the front wheel wells. It's pretty tight to fit 3 pedals in there unless you have very tiny baby feet. But that's really, those are the 2 engineering reasons why we didn't go. The other reason is our direct competitors now don't also offer a
But are they thinking about it?
I cannot confirm or deny anything other than what is right for us. By the way, the 2 cars that we were benchmarked side by side against, which is pretty exciting to talk about, the Ferrari 458 Spider and the McLaren 570S. Those were our direct competitors that we're coming after now. Questions? Yes? Tires? What's the... I don't understand what the question is. Oh, just appearance. Yeah, just appearance, that's all. Just cosmetic. No, yeah, just... He was asking about the machined lip on the carbon flash metallic. You have the exposed metal with the little nubs on it. It's just appearance. They don't actually have a functional bar. Yeah.
Front collision versus no engine to protect it versus
Front crash protection?
yeah.
Yeah. Did anybody see the picture, the sad, horrible, depressing picture of the blue test unit that was crashed in California? It was horrible news because we lost a Corvette, which was a prototype. The good news was it actually held up impeccably well in that accident. So it's kind of neat to see. You do have a very dense front crash strut brace, and you still do have crumple zones up in the front as well, even though the engine is shifting behind you. Yeah.
Does the engineer still have his job to rectify?
No, I certainly never heard the fallout from that. 60-40 weight distribution on board.
Rear end ratio.
Oh, gear ratios. I don't have that yet. It is a lower gear ratio with Z51 compared to non. I just don't have the engineering diagnostics yet on what the actual ratios are. Yeah. I was told from the engineering department, though, that the lower ratio
right now,
of
no.
Z51
It keeps
is
on
actually
longer.
what's making the biggest difference here to 60 and 50. It's not, I mean, you gain 5 horsepower, 5 foot torque with your exhaust, but it's really the axle ratio and the stick of your tires that are really getting. Oh, tires. One last thing, folks, then we'll let you know about asking any more questions. If you get Z51, you're also stuck with, you're only getting the Michelin Pilot Cup 4S summer only performance tires, which we have here. If you go non-Z51, you're getting the Michelin all season tires. 3 seasons, they're good for year-round use. Temperature regulations on these tires are 40 degrees, no lower. Any of you guys that have summer Pilot Cup 4Ss, you know when it gets cold, you're losing a lot of your traction on ice skates. The year-round tires just behind you over there in the corner, that is rated for up to -20. So you can drive your Corvette 3 seasons, no problem. Both tires built bespoke by Michelin specifically for this car. Sports car, our head designer and engineer, Tats Jukter, said when we built the C7, we could only incrementally improve its performance based off of the C6, and part of that only came down to the tires that we use. So we had reached the pinnacle of what we could accomplish with a front-engine sports car. Thus, the C8 was born. Now, for starters, it is a much bigger sports car than the C7. This vehicle is almost 6 inches longer and 2.2 inches wider than our outgoing C7. It might not look it just due to the different dynamics, but it has a much more sizable footprint, and there is definitely a reason for that. We're going to start our walk around here at the front, guys. If you want to sneak around to the nose, if you want to see everything we're talking about as we go around, kind of describe the architectures at play here. This is one of the leanest sports cars we've ever built, and by lean, I mean every body panel is stretched as tightly as possible over the underlying mechanical components. We're going to start at the front here and work our way back. First of all, mid-engine, of course, 60-40 weight distribution, 60 in the rear, 40 in the front. And the big question when you design a mid-engine sports car is what are you going to do with the chassis? There are 2 schools of thoughts. You either build a tub chassis or a center tunnel rail chassis. This is center tunnel rail architecture. The benefit to that is we were able to increase our structural rigidity by 10%, and that opens up a lot of space on the sides of the vehicle for running coolant and electronics. Coolant is where we're going to start. So the biggest heat dispersers on board the vehicle are just here on the front of your headlights. If you crouch down with me here, folks, you'll notice that they actually extend past the cutaway in the front grille. So you have 2 huge radiators on either side of the nose. Those are going to be your primary engine radiators. These circular ducts here cut into the carbon flash metallic front fascia are active. Those are your front brake cooling ducts. So everything in the front of the architecture of the vehicle, that's why we're sitting a little wider. Everything was designed to fit heat dispersers around. You don't have to worry about overheating. That's some of the biggest concerns that people have with mid-engine sports cars. Everything that we designed started there and then worked our way back. So we also have two trunks on board. The front trunk, which we fondly call the frunk. You'll hear that just click twice. We'll get into that in one sec. This is the frunk. Pretty deep, almost 2 feet deep here. You can fit one rigid hard shell airline overhead bin bag or a lot of soft luggage. Soft luggage is definitely your friend here. 2 or 3 duffel bags will fit in there. You have 3 mechanical components riding in the nose with you now. Under this ventilated flap here, you have your battery and all of your electronics. We have brake fluid, and this is a huge story for us here. This is the first time we've ever offered brake-by-wire brakes. We're calling it e-boost. Does anybody here own a C7 Corvette? Any C7 owners? Couple hands up. All right. On your C7s, depending how you guys have it equipped, you can adjust your throttle response, your suspension, and your exhaust. You can do all that on the C8 and more. We now have e-boost brakes on board, letting you digitally tune and adjust your brakes as you go. So within the 4 preset settings, track, sport, touring, and weather, not only does it adjust, as we just said, suspension, exhaust, throttle, but even the feeling you're getting from your brake, that adjusts the amount of resistance you're getting on the pedal, even where the pedal engages. So you really can tune your driving settings to better fit your daily needs or your wants, both for track use and just around town. The other mechanical component up here is your washer fluid. To trickle charge in the winter, that goes straight through the auxiliary port right here on the left-hand side. You don't even have to touch the actual battery anymore. We had that on the C7 as well. And of course, you have an escape latch up here in the front for a very small child or a very small human. I don't know who could get trapped in there, but it's there by federal law, so we're glad we have safety features on board as well. That kind of takes us through the front of the car. Again, just to reiterate, heat dispersers under the nose, brake duct cutaways, battery under the nose, brakes under the nose, brake-by-wire system, e-boost, and your wiper fluid. Now, in order to get more active downforce on the car, we had to sculpt this extensively and do a lot of wind tunnel testing. 2 benefits and also sort of 1 setback, but we'll get to that. The angle you see here of the front hood and the windshield are the most sloped and aggressive that we've ever had in the car. Basically, because the heaviest part of the vehicle is now the rear at 60, we had to find a way to keep air pressing the nose into the ground at speed. The architecture and the design that you see here does exactly that. The downside was, with the A-pillars swept so far back, it decreased a little bit of visibility, but it was a pretty easy fix. Most people don't even notice this. It's kind of my favorite quirky feature. The passenger side rear view mirror here actually sticks out 2 inches further from the vehicle than the driver's side mirror. Don't know if anyone noticed. Most people don't notice till we mention it, but it is 2 inches wider. Basically, the only reason for that is with the A-pillars so swept back, when you look over from your driving position, with the 2 inches further out, you get the same visibility on both sides. Looking down the sides of the vehicle, you notice we have 2 huge air intakes on either sides. Everything is fully functional on this vehicle and everything serves a specific purpose. On the passenger side here, in this intake, you'll notice you have a huge heat disperser back here. That is going to be your primary transmission coolant. That is your radiator for your transmission. On the end, on the driver's side, that bay is hollow. That is doing 3 different functions technically. This is where your engine breathes on this side. Welcome. Good look for you, by the way. That is where your engine breathes. You have your air intake and that scoop there. It also diverts into 3 different ducts midway back that panel. You have a fan-driven heat disperser for active air. We'll get to that in 1 sec. And also your rear brake duct cooling on the driver's side. Now we're going to get into the interior really quickly. You're looking at the 3LT. This is the highest of the 3 trim levels we offer. Really what you're paying for with the 3LT is a level of craftsmanship we haven't offered before in Corvette. Everything is either leather or suede. That is it. There's very little plastic in the interior. Well, I'm excited. No one else seems to be excited about that. That's a big deal for us here at Corvette. So what you're paying for with the 3LT, everything from the dashboard up is suede. A-pillars, B-pillars, roof, even your removable targa top, all is suede. Everything down is Napa quality leather grade. Dash, doors, seats, center console. The only plastic in the interior, which you can't actually touch when you're sitting in the car, is going to be your wireless cell phone charger directly behind you in the center. Someone pointed out earlier, they asked, is that an upside down wine bottle holder? I was like, no, it does look suspiciously like it would be, but we don't encourage that kind of behavior here at Chevy. It is just your cell phone charger. The 2LT trim level by proxy is also fully loaded digitally and mechanically. You're just not getting the leather and suede everywhere. So on 2LT, you're getting all the digital goodies. You're getting the 2 cameras in the front, side blind zone alert on the side, rear cross traffic alert on the rear, dual rear cameras, heads-up display, performance data recorder, Bose 14-speaker performance audio system. All that stuff comes, heated seats, ventilated seats, everything like that is fully loaded on the 2LT. So again, 2LT has everything digital and mechanical, 3LT just adds more leather and suede. 1LT, the lowest trim level, starting under 60,000, is pretty basic in terms of digital content, but you get a really fast sports car for the money. It's pretty incredible what we've been able to do for the price. We were mentioning this earlier, we were benchmarked against 2 specific vehicles, the Ferrari 458 Spider and the McLaren 570S. Those are the cars that we were built side by side with. We outperform them both and are a fraction of the cost. So that's why you see crowds like this everywhere we go. It's a pretty amazing feat that they were able to engineer here. In the rear of the car, we're going to go to the engine bay here now. So this gets back to the active heat dispersal. When you build a mid-engine sports car, getting rid of the heat is pretty important. You'll notice here we have 6 perforated grates on the back of the engine bay and also a cantilevered edge. If you check out the screen right there, if you can't see me at the front of the car, this glass is not sealed. That is a cantilevered glass edge. Basically, it's the principles of convection. Heat rises. So natural heat is escaping through the roof. We also have twin fans on either side of the car pushing hot air out of the engine bay. So in the rear fascia back here, between the exhaust pipes, you'll notice all this perforated black mesh. That is actually sucking hot air out of the engine bay immediately out of the car. So a lot of people wonder, how is the heat and noise in the cabin? It's not nearly as bad as you would think because you're very well insulated. The design theory behind this is hot engine air is never allowed to accumulate in the engine bay. It's either escaping itself naturally out of the top or being forced out the back of the vehicle. So it's never sitting in there being able to affect the temperature cabin or rear trunk temperature as well. The big question with the grates, a lot of people are very concerned about water. What happens if it rains? The answer is yes, water can get in. Water will get in, that is totally fine. The engine has been engineered for that. You have a 4-tier duct system back here. 2 ducts on the furthest side of the trunk here and 2 circular drains up the front there. Also some on the bottom of the engine bay. So if water gets in, it's immediately whisked right out of the engine bay outside of the vehicle. It's just important to remember you can't bring this car through a car wash. I know 90% of Corvette owners would never dream of bringing their Corvette through a car wash anyways. I tip my hat to you guys. But with most mid-engine sports cars in the world, because you have active heat dispersion, you can't bring it through a car wash, you have to wash it by hand. Hand washing is absolutely totally fine. Brand new engine, brand new transmission, and all new magnetic ride control Gen 4 suspension. You're looking at a small block, naturally aspirated American V8, 6.2 liters, 495 horsepower, 470 pound-foot of torque, 0 to 60 under 3 seconds. So you're never going to be late for anything. That's the good news. You can leave after the meeting has started and somehow get there on time. It's an all-new engine. Although it is a 6.2, same as our outgoing LT1, there's not one shared part between this whole car other than the only shared part is your interior door latch. That is it. Everything else on the vehicle has been bespoke, built brand new. MagRide Gen 4 can adjust itself 1,000 times a second to digitally tune the suspension to your any road conditions you might find yourself in. And we have a brand new transmission. It is an 8-speed dual-clutch transaxle built by Tremec in conjunction with General Motors. This first 6 gears are pretty tightly spaced, so it's keeping you right in the middle of your power bandwidth for performance driving. The 7th and 8th gear are pretty widely spaced apart for efficient highway driving. That's basically how the transmission is geared. If you go for the Z51 Performance Package, which this vehicle does have, you have a lower axle ratio in the rear, getting you 0 to 60 under 3 seconds. So that basically takes us through the components of the way here. We'll talk about Z51 really quickly. Z51 Package gives you 6 things. Exclusively on the outside of the car, you're getting this chin splitter under the front. Your ground clearance is 5.1 inches, not including this chin splitter. You're getting the rear spoiler on the back. Oh, those are only Z51. You can't get that rear spoiler and the front chin splitter outside of the Z51 package as separate options yet. You're getting bigger brake rotors on board. The only place on board the vehicle that says Z51 is going to be on your brake calipers. You're getting an electronic limited slip differential in the rear, lower axle ratios, dual mode performance exhaust. and also an added cooling radiator for the transmission. That's basically what you get with the Z51. For $5,000, it's a lot of content and it's very useful and practical for track day use. The other thing with Z51, these tires are the Michelin Pilot Cup 4S summer-only performance tires. Stickier tires, better for track day performance, and getting those automatically with Z51. If you get non-Z51, you're getting all-season tires, which are going to be back there in the back corner. Michelin All Seasons rated for up to -20 temperature. These guys here are rated for 40 degrees in temperature. So if you're looking for an all-year-round driver, I wouldn't recommend Z51, but it's all personal preference. Folks, that takes us through the bulk of the architectures here at play for the new C8. Any questions, please ask away. We will be here all day. Yes, we'll start Q&A here. Questions? Yes, size and interior. The biggest gentleman we've had fit in this cabin was 6'6", hit a race helmet on, and fit under the roof. You get a lot more length in the cabin, not a lot more width. It's not a lot wider than the C7, but it is a lot longer. Taller gentlemen are having a much easier time getting in and out. MSRP, as it sits right here, is $84,200. $84,200. 3 LT Z50.